And news today, and not surprising at all, although you never know how something might be, how long or how much can someone push something, that the Big 12 today released a statement from Brett Yormark as commissioner. It is my responsibility to explore a variety of value-creating opportunities on behalf of the Big 12. Following detailed discussions with my conference colleagues alongside UConn leadership, we have jointly decided to pause our conversations at this time. We will instead focus our attention and resources to ushering in this new era of college athletics. This is exactly what is the deal. There's no question UConn's great in basketball. Will always, it seemed like, be an unbelievable alpha in basketball. But this came because of pushback from those in the conference because of football, period. They would all love UConn in basketball, every one of them. But they don't want UConn football. We've discussed it. That's why Brett Yormark wants a tent pole in New York City, and UConn's as close to that as possible. It's not going to work, at least not right now.
Yeah, they didn't need to do this right now. And football, for all the extra money you may think you'd make with basketball, how much money do you lose because you're not getting ratings because Iowa State versus UConn doesn't even pull a 1 share? You know, like those are the things you have to think about when all these things are going on and everything's built around TV ratings and what draws eyes and what draws ad revenue for them. Is UConn football in the next 6 years going to make some sort of huge jump where they're going to be a ratings monster? Well, in the first 100 years of UConn's existence as a college, that has not happened. So unless they have some sort of influx of outside money to prove to the Big 12 that they can make football as dominant as basketball is, which in that part of the country with the way football, you know, the high school talent, all that stuff is unlikely because there's not many teams in that part of the country that are very good at college football. So, yeah, I mean, this is the best course forward, and this is not something that needs to happen now. It's not like they're negotiating against another conference to get UConn. They're negotiating against themselves.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I feel bad for the UConn fans who got drug along into another, endless chase of trying to find themselves into a power conference only to be left disappointed again. And that's not the first time that's happened to them. It's not the second time that's happened to them. It's happened a couple times now. If not a handful or so over the years. And here was one where, okay, maybe this is it. But I saw like a change in tone last week with some UConn fans who clearly had their own sources and saw the writing on the wall that this wasn't likely. And they were pretty pissed off that this was kind of, getting the emotions all going again as like this hope that's out there, like, oh, maybe this is the time. And then when it became clear that it probably wasn't going to happen, I think there was, some ill feelings because they're tired of being a yo-yo. You know what I mean? They're not, no one's happy. Washington State fans, Oregon State fans, no one likes not knowing what the future looks like. So here was this opportunity to maybe have that answered for you. And now it's not going to happen once again. So you're going to still be very, very good in basketball. You're going to always have a future because of that, but the rest of it remains a little bit of a question as far as competing at a power 4 level. I think this is just the logical decision to make for the Big 12, not for Brett Yormark. I understand where he's coming from. That's why we all get why this was happening. We all get the pursuit and why UConn is a gem out there that he wants to go and obtain. We get that. That makes sense. Expand east, all of that. But for everybody else that's involved in the decision-making, the timing just doesn't make any sense, and it never did. And I tell you, the best example of the timing not being that great is if you want to throw out a flare that the Big 12 and UConn are talking again, how about do it during basketball season when their programs are winning games and not days before they go and they get beat 50-7 by another power team? Because that was just a really bad look to go out and get romped on by Maryland when – there's clearly this big discussion revolving around them. So, yeah, maybe do that like before basketball, and then both the men and women go out and win big, and you're like, see? But when you did it, and then we turned around and watched their first game turn into what it turned into, it's like, I think they need more than 6 years to get their ducks in a row to be competitive in football. I don't think that's going to be the cure-all, is just waiting longer. But I hate it for their fans for at least the time being. Obviously, they said pause. And so that's got some meaning behind it. Yep. So this is not going to go away entirely, but it does look like it should rightfully go away during football season. Beyond UConn football, I just didn't like it taken away from the start of Big 12 football and all of college football So I would be glad to revisit this at some point down the line once we get our entertainment value out of football. And I don't think that so long as Brett Yormark's leading the way that this is going to go away entirely. But I do think they made the right decision as far as right now. There's just too many unknowns out there, and this was not a pressing issue in my mind, at least.
Also there was also a note. Matt Norlander, sorry, Paul, made the comment that one of the other parts of this is that UConn cannot leave the Big East until 2027. So it's another couple of years down the road. If this was 26, then maybe bottom line is the football part of this is what not killed it, but what, as you go ahead, Paul, was what put this thing on pause or hold or maybe dead on the vine at some point.
Well, I mean, everybody talks about the Craig looks to make fun of it all the time of here's a big day in the ACC and it's happening, and it's just this is a minor court filing about about who's going to be the second chair attorney kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the only date that we really have for sure in the ACC thing is next February, when ESPN can opt out of the contract if they so choose.
Yeah.
If ESPN does do that and the ACC is left rudderless and without a TV partner, then this conversation could get a little bit different, because I think you can go to the Big 12 leaders and your Brett Yormark and say, okay, we can add these 3 teams from the ACC are ready to go. And then can we add UConn now? And then that way the football thing kind of falls into the wayside of it, because you're like, well, if you're going to get NC State and you're going to get Georgia Tech, then you're like, okay, well, that's stuff that people will watch. And then they're like, yeah, but we got UConn too. And but we've got,
by the way,
Atlanta and Charlotte, markets like that.
UConn is freaking great as far as what we know. We know about their men's team, the women's team also with Gino, and maybe they'll turn it back around with what Shiano's doing at UConn. But that's a work in progress. Kansas turned theirs around, Baylor turned theirs around, so it can happen. Others have too. But one of the things that was also said, and Craig, you made this comment, and this is something I think we all have said too. We will instead focus our attention and resources to ushering in this new era of college athletics. That's also all the new rules and all the new, but also let's let those who just joined this year have their year. Let's let them enjoy their year, just like most of them last year were able to enjoy their year, at least most of them for a while, with BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF.
Yeah, I named the pods, and I think this is actually the best way to describe the Houston, UCF, Cincinnati, BYU pod is the G5 pod, because that's where they came from. That's the best label. I call it the American because I know the G5 label is kind of touchy or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But that is what it is. It's the way to best describe it and encompass all of them. But that G5 pod that they brought in, they weren't even in the door yet, and it was on to the pack. And then look, I get it, because the pack was a really big deal. That was not something that anybody had really foreseen shaping up exactly the way that it did. They envisioned how they would hope it would go, but you couldn't say for sure. And it certainly didn't look like the pack was going to fumble that TV deal at the beginning of it, at least. It was only after time went by that there was oh my God, this might happen actually. And the Big 12 had no choice but to go after that and go all in on that, because look where they are now. They needed to do that. But then, the pack get in here, and before the ink was even dry, I think the last team had said they were coming in, and the next day I saw it's happening, Oregon State, and then that didn't happen, and then it was here's Gonzaga, and then here's UConn, and I love that they're being they're being aggressive and they're being exploratory in every way, whether it's basketball decoupling or how can we get better in football or whatever. But those 8 teams really have not really even had their first meal digested yet, and it's been on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I do like the idea of let's let these 8 teams that have joined in the last 2 years settle in and see what this league looks like, and then let's go from there, because there's plenty of time to expand, especially when it's not as though you're going and picking off the top dogs, that you're going to start the chain reaction. This chapter, at least, you're going to be more of the reaction to whatever may happen, right? So I don't think you need to be the one pressing the change necessarily. You need to be more just preparing for it and ready to pounce. And I think that they are, but I'm thankful that they're going to at least stop the hunting for right now and just let it be what it is and enjoy what they've accumulated the last couple of years, and let's see what that league looks like.
And again, following detailed discussions with my conference colleagues alongside UConn leadership, it was very well written to kind of also include them in this decision too.
Interesting to make it public.
Yeah, that like it did confirm everything.
Right.
At the same time, there was just enough. I can't remember what it was last summer, and I think it was UConn when this came out, while they were also going to add the new 4 schools from the Pac-12, when that popped up, and I was told by an administrator in the Big 12, he doesn't need to take this to a vote right now. He doesn't need to do it. This could, and I've said it before, but I want to reiterate it. This could like end some of the momentum he has, because right now he is flying high, and we all love it. But don't do this. Don't take UConn to a vote. And I think that's the same thing that would have happened even a year later. In 6 months, who knows? But right now is not the time. And I think even your Mark, who could have plowed right through this, understands, okay, we gotta make sure everybody is on board.
Yeah. He knows how to work things, and he's going to take his shots, when he feels like he's got them. And this is the first thing that probably hasn't gone exactly his way, but if everything else, continues on the track that it is, he'll be fine. I do think it's funny that, because the Big 12 is in the position that it's in, is that every time there's teams to mention, it's like, oh, the Big 12, the Big 12,
go get them. Yeah, go get them.
But like every time you try to put, with teams into other leagues, like the Big 10 and the SEC, both their commissioners like, oh, we're good.
Oh yeah.
Like, because they know that they really are.
Well, they're in the country club. They got the gates.
But even still, even if it made sense that like, they're just like,
Well, yeah, I mean, because.
And they can let Texas, my point in the SEC is they can let Texas and Oklahoma have their, entry in without anything interfering with it. And then every time that, Florida State and Clemson try to, like that kind of pops up, they're like, yeah, but we don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do care about that. They just can't say that they care. Again, like they're just being smart as far as what they're saying publicly. They would absolutely have some level of interest. Whether they would accept them or not, I don't know. But to say like there's no interest, I think is total poppycock. I mean, there's not zero if Florida State and Clemson are suddenly available.
Sure.
And even if there's not from the SEC, there would be for the Big 10. I don't start going down this other side road, but I know what you're saying, Paul. But that's because they're exclusive conferences. Like they've got the big money deals in the big markets. They're not worried about like bifurcating basketball right now. They don't need to. The Big 12's got to be more creative, and they have a different bar as far as what they would welcome in versus the others. So yeah, those other leagues, they only open their eyes or look your direction if it's somebody who's on their level, which right now is a lot of big brands at the top that are their face. And so you need to be a big brand and a big face to even welcome that conversation with those leagues. Whereas you just got to be kind of interesting for the Big 12, like you got to be kind of interesting and have a little something to you, but you don't have to be like AAU, or you don't have to have like 150,000 years of, Midwestern history,
right.
It's a different ball game. But it does seem like every time anybody's brought up as like having a feeling of wanting to move somewhere, having a chance to move somewhere. It's like, here's the Big 12 talk right out of the gates. And I do think that can be fun. I think it can also get a little bit silly because Gonzaga came and went. UConn's come and gone twice. Oregon State and Washington State, that was last summer, is like, it's happening. Boom. We're a year later. Maybe it happens at some point, but it still hasn't happened a year later. So there's all those that have swirled and pop up like UConn again that I'm sure, Oregon State, Washington State will continue to pop up, but the Big 12 will be what it'll be. It'll be open-eared, and it'll be interested in all sorts of possibilities, but it's just not necessarily going to always have the power or the votes to go and make every single thing happen. So it's not happening right now, maybe for UConn in the future, but I think this is the right decision by the conference to just stop where you are for right now, and then, see where it takes you here in, the coming months.
Remember now, Endeavor was a part of that presentation too, about what UConn could bring to the table.
I do wonder how many times does Brett Yormark get told no before he gets the little, I did see somebody just in the comments on one of the posts about UConn saying like, you're going to piss Yormark off and he's going to be out of there and then the conference is going to crumble. And like you might piss him off and he might leave, but I don't think people understand exactly how it operates. It's not like he's like the owner, CEO, president that he started this thing from scratch. Like he answers to the presidents ultimately.
Like Goodell does to the owners, even though he makes a lot of his decisions.
People think like he could like turn the lights off or on, but he can't. But I do wonder for your Mark, like that's got to be a frustrating thing. He clearly wants this, and he's gone to the well twice on it, and he wants the Northeast in New York. So that's just something to monitor that has not gone his way when a lot of things have gone his way.
By the way, Kim Coulter, Smokey, Paul Craig, every successful business owner knows this expression and either adheres to it or dies. Recruit or die.
Yeah.
Kim, I agree. In the world of sales, you are going to be kicked in the teeth a lot more than you're going to have somebody say, yes, I want to buy that proposal. I want to do that. You have to be thick-skinned. You have to be tough. You have to get new teeth every once in a while. Stonewood Dental, by the way. And I'm right. And Kim, I know you're a successful businessman. We've talked about that before. And so you're right. You can't be afraid to go find. And your Mark has done a great job since he became the commissioner. The 4 schools were already coming in with Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU. But then he went after the next level. He put another conference out of business.
He made the pack happen in so many ways.
He did. So I agree with you. You're right. You cannot be afraid to look, ask, and find, or you will be left behind. Don't think that your Mark has given up on this, but for right now, I think it was just enough. It's a distraction. There's no need to do it right now, and it maybe circle the wagons and see what happens at some point, as Craig, you said, hopefully when like 4 or 5 teams from the Big 12 and also UConn are ranked inside the top 10 or 15 in basketball. All right. We're going to, not yet, we have a video of Kyle Whittingham at Utah with a press conference that you'll shock you. We're going to have that in a second, but let's get to the Texas-Michigan game for just a couple of reasons. There's a cat fight between, of course, College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff, right? Fox has introduced their guest speakers, or I guess guests for their Texas-Michigan coverage. They're both going to be at the Big House. Derek Jeter and also Matthew McConaughey. Pretty big bangers.
Yeah.
All right. College Game Day announced that Michael Phelps, who actually attended Michigan, he couldn't compete there because of some sort of, I guess, sponsorship or whatever. And
he wanted to make money.
Yeah. He could have, like, now
he'd make a bunch of money in college.
Michigan would have won they could have won a team championship. Yeah. And they just announced that Will Ferrell. Now, what does he have to do with Texas and Michigan?
Nothing.
I know he's an alpha.
He's a USC guy, but maybe he's probably promoting something, that
a new movie,
a new movie or something,
or just because he's funny as hell.
Yeah.
But this is getting to be like, okay, now what's going to happen, Paul? Big Noon's going to come back and say, we're going to have
I don't think they need to.
No, I know, but I think it's like a chess match between these two. And the ratings in the first weekend, I'm sure for both, were very, very good with the interest in college football.
I mean, I know what fun you're trying to have there, but I think what you went Will Ferrell and the other side's got McConaughey, and she just like, well, I don't think they really need to answer back to. I think they've already answered.
They both matched each other, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I give an edge to McConaughey over Ferrell and he actually makes sense. Will Ferrell, like you said, is a USC guy. I remember vividly when USC Texas played in the Rose Bowl that he and McConaughey were the little pregame package of them going back and forth. And remember, Ferrell had the Heisman on both. I was like, I can't hear you because Bush and Leinart had won Heismans, and they had that little video package. So I remember that vividly. And then Texas obviously got the last laugh there. But, Will Ferrell's a USC guy. Yeah. And USC and Michigan aren't even buddies like this.
No,
so they're far from it.
They're Rose Bowl opponents, but now
they're conference opponents right there. I like that's look, I do not partake in Big Noon Kickoff, so I refuse to.
Oh, okay, wait a minute, hold on, let me think. Desmond? No, he's on Game Day.
He's on Game Day.
Oh, it's Urban Meyer.
Well, and now Mark Ingram, who I'm about to be in a protracted battle with because
he took your show.
Because they just said we're going to name our thing this and didn't use friggin' Google. Here's the thing. They did one of two things. They either didn't use Google and look up to see if there's a college football podcast called The Triple Option, or they did and they said, F that fat a-hole, we don't care. And I think it's the second one. But,
Will Ferrell's playing John Madden in the movie, right?
No, Nicolas Cage is now.
Okay. All right, they changed it from a year ago. Okay, I just Googled Will Ferrell and John Madden. Somebody brought that up, but you're right, Nicolas Cage is.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
I just Googled to see if there's any sort of connection that I'm missing out on. And like, I think there's like people who have drawn comparisons to how Harbaugh acts and Will Ferrell, and you can see like an SNL skit type thing, but he doesn't coach there anymore.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know what the connection. He's probably promoting a movie, like you said, but either way, I think I'm leaning Big Noon on this one with McConaughey and Derek Jeter, who's a big Michigan fan, and he's been in a lot of Michigan stuff over the years.
Had he not been drafted
he's going
second
to Michigan,
overall, he was going to Michigan.
Yeah, he's been that guy for the Wolverines for a while, so that makes plenty of sense. But yeah, that's a big game, obviously, when you've got both of those outlets that are there, and why not? I mean, it's the two arguably biggest in terms of like fans and money and things like that. It's two of the, if not the top two biggest brands in the country. So I'm really interested to know what the eyeballs look like for this one. Like, do they pop 10 million for this game?
Oh, I think they will.
Yeah, I mean, it's so as if it's competitive, I'm sure they will. But yeah, that's going to be a great one just because of the parties involved and the uncertainty surrounding how both are going to look in the big house.
All right, so that's a little information for tomorrow. Saturday, excuse me, at Big Noon, and also College Game Day, 11 o'clock, just after 11 o'clock, that game again between Texas and Michigan. Yeah, if you were to match like Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas. There's only so many.
There's way less than there's the Blue Bloods. I'll tell you that much.
Less than two hands, right? Less than
for like the mega brand. Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Ashley Hodge, about 2 or so weeks ago, there was a mixer. Baylor coaches from all the various sports were there. And we were just sitting around relaxing, and he came walking up to me. He goes, "You're not going to believe this. Somebody is taking your identity, like not like LifeLock, whatever that thing is called, but
Life Wallet. John Ruiz helps support Miami NIL.
No. Somebody is taking your voice and stolen your voice." And I'm like, first of all, why would they want to do that? So he plays me this audio that somebody is what do you call it? AI?
Yeah.
And it's me, and it kind of not really, but it was okay. It kind of it intrigued me. So he's got somebody that does this. He's found somebody that does this. And I think it's scary as hell. Here is Kyle Whittingham. And this was produced by, I guess, Sikkim 365 and Ashley Hodge and his buddy, Kyle Whittingham, at a press conference. And you know what? Sometimes we just get too serious about life. And here it is.
Travis Carver, special guest contributor for Sikkim 365 Sports. Coach Baylor is coming off an impressive win and looked to be much improved over last year. You escaped Waco last year by a nut hair. How do you plan to avoid the fulfillment of the prophecy this year?
Hey, T-Rex, good to see you. Give my regards to Ashley Hodge. I love what he does at Baylor basketball games. And tell Etheridge that I ate at the Forge last week and the Wagyu ribeye with tallow butter was superb. To answer your question, I don't really think Baylor has improved much at all. You know, coaches are expected to be complimentary of upcoming opponents in these press conferences, but let's face it, they played William and Mary last week, and William was injured. I don't know who is calling their plays on offense, but Terrence Williams would be an upgrade. Their offensive line couldn't block an artery with an open thorax and a grease sandwich. The Titanic took a better route than their receivers run. Holy Toledo, that quarterback sucks. His game film looks like my wife after a box of Franzia, sloppy and erratic. And they have a white running back, for goodness sakes. The defense looks a little better with the Mexican Mr. Clean calling plays, but that's like being the smartest poster on TexAgs. Their defensive backs couldn't cover a Burger King tab with a stolen credit card. Their linebackers are slower than free shipping. If we don't hang half 100 on them by halftime, we're doing it wrong. We're only watching film of their punter because he'll get more snaps than the quarterback. Bottom line, they're ass.
So that, it's gotten all sorts of responses, even Utah fans, if anyone with a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to play that. Ashley had played that audio of me, and I was like, that's kind of frightening that it could be that kind of close.
Tom Hanks is people have been using Tom Hanks's AI voice.
Really?
Because he's Tom Hanks, and he's like, this is not me, So Sometimes you think, because it's some stuff that like, how would they even get Tom Hanks for this? Why would he care?
Yeah.
No. But
everyone's saying it fake and not, but everyone's having fun with it. Hysterical.
Yeah, normally this
else.
More sounds like the person.
Yeah.
That didn't really sound.
I don't know if that's how Kyle Whittingham sounds. Or
no,
we
it's
interviewed
not.
him. Okay. Okay.
I mean, so that was something that stood out to me, but I'll just say that, yeah, AI's come a long way, and frighteningly. I'm so glad I grew up when I did. I really am, because it's just such a confusing world, especially the better that stuff gets. And you can't, like, on Twitter and stuff, I stick to basically like facts and like that, and I don't even tweet a lot. Like, I don't think I've tweeted in like 3 or 4 days. So I sort of stay away from it. But so much of it, part of that is because I don't know what's real anymore. Like, when people are like tweet, like, is that a bot or is that somebody actually feels that way? Because like half of it, it's you don't know. I mean, it's going to be a wild world in about 10 years when that's progressed even further. And kind of like the movies we grew up watching in some ways, and for better or worse. But yeah, it's amazing how much that's already kind of become a thing here in the last couple of years.
People who are so excited about it, like, either didn't see the Terminator or watched it and were rooting for the Terminator, like, or
they think that this is all it's going to be is fun videos, and they don't understand that there's a lot that's not.
Look what we can do. We can make anybody say anything we want. All right, that's hilarious. Oh yeah, well, what about when the robots take over and become self-aware? Then we have Skynet, and I don't want that. No,
it's just part of getting older. You're just like amazed at, like, wow, that's just out there and available for anybody to get on their computer and like do like Jim Harbaugh being Will Ferrell on AI, like you can do it, talking about how like they want to take over like Jamaica or, like just any prompt. I've seen them all. I've seen so many wild things. It's just, it's a crazy world. And I don't know where it's taking us exactly, but that's fun. That's a fun use of it. And that's hopefully what you get from most people. It's just a fun use of it.
Yeah. The part that will not be fun is when they actually can truly like completely match somebody's voice, which again, I don't know how you can prove that or not. And it leads to some sort of controversy and nobody believes the person that's not their voice.
Well, that's happened a couple times. I mean, not on like a grand scale, but I've seen that happen like briefly where people do get confused and have to have it pointed out. Like, no, that's fake. That's AI. But like in 10 years, like where will the technology be to where it's going to be nearly impossible unless you have like a computer to match it perfectly and go like, oh, see, it's detected that it's. But beyond that, like, how are you going to know? Well, like, that's where it's just crazy, and I don't know.
I'll tell you what's going to be big business for schools. The standardized test made money off them for years, right? Of here's what the test is going to be, whatever this new math stuff, like all these lobbies. The next thing is going to be AI detection for reports, because
there's already that.
Yeah, that's already, but the next level to keep ahead of it, they have to do it because otherwise nobody's ever going to read the Red Badge of Courage again. Like they're just going to go write a book report about the Red Badge of Courage. If you read the first couple pages and this character's sadness throughout the thing, and then it's just going to do it. And then,
yeah, no, it's crazy where it's going, how fast it's going. That's definitely the next wave of like multi-billion-dollar technology, and like the big stocks and all that is going to be AI companies. So yeah, that's going to be a lot better in a few years is the point, but it's fun to have fun.
Let me ask you guys a question, because I've seen some of this. Can you feed AI and they'll write a story for you?
Yes.
How?
You just tell it what you. I want you to write a story about David Smoak being a paleontologist and discovering a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and there will be a story in like, I don't know how long it takes, but it will pop it out and that'll be a story about it.
Hey, so for our fantasy,
so basically, writers are going to get eliminated in a lot of different ways.
Unfortunately, that's already a trend in some cases. Anyway.
Okay, for the fantasy football show, by the way, That Damn Fantasy Show, that's on That Damn Fantasy Show channel. You can go to that. Steve May went online, and we're doing a bit each week where he goes online and he has AI songs, like theme songs written, and I'm going to tell you, they're not great, but they're kind of good.
I'll tell you what, I know some that are great. The Ticket in Dallas. I know we probably want to move on at some point from AI talk, but the Ticket in Dallas have like a little segment that they do, because that's what I usually listen to on the way home. And it's what is the one? I think it's Community Quick Hits, where they just talk about local stuff. and they put in the AI prompt and got spit back like 3 different theme songs for him. And a couple of them are actually like really freaking good, like perfect, like better than what they had originally. And that I was like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's also terrifying because that was the computer, not a musician that would have normally gotten paid for that.
Yeah.
Now it's just like they put in the thing in the computer and it spit it out. And it sounds like a pro musician went and wrote this song and recorded it. And it was really just the AI did it. But that's also in sports. Like, I guarantee you, if we wanted to dip into it with some of the technology guys, like on a football staff, they're doing it to some extent. They're finding ways to use it. Well, I know that like gamblers are finding ways to use AI. So like it's going to be incorporated into everything, even sports.
I'll tell you, jingle writers are going to be in big trouble now because if I wanted somebody to write a jingle for my, Paul Catalina coffee mugs, now I just have to go in and like, Paul Catalina coffee mugs, we keep your stuff hot.
Oh my
that's
God,
look done. So
that's really cool. I've seen a couple of the AI stories when people have published it, and they say, "Well, that was written by AI." So I was sending a text. I just saw a note about Stacey Dales. Everything's good. Who I've gotten to know over the years when she's covered basketball, and she's now been elevated to the senior national reporter. Sorry, I got distracted by that from the NFL Network. Now, one more college. I know, very random. Look, there's a duck. One more college football notes for the Florida Gators and Billy Napier. Paul sent this out to us yesterday evening. There's no way. It's a $26 million buyout. Now, Florida is probably like A&M, like Texas and others. If they want to buy somebody out, they'll find the money. But how much do you think they could actually raise? Like $1,700 or $17,000? What?
I don't know. I need to check.
You can look. Where's it at right now? I mean, it's on GoFundMe.
It might be $42 million because they're ready, man.
It's not going to be $26 million, that's for sure. But that's just fun. That's just a Florida fan being fed up and probably being partially serious and seeing what they can get out of this. But he's in a bad spot, and they don't have a schedule that's going to really open up much for them this year. So let the DJ Lagway era begin, and let's see how good he can be, how quickly he can be good. And that's really what they've got to hope for, is that he's a difference maker for them, because there was not a lot to be happy about after last week.
Okay. So they're killing it with 7 donations, $575.
That's $80 a pop.
One person, anonymous, donated $500.
All right.
So it was Billy Napier in Gainesville, Florida, was the one that donated that.
How many donated?
7 people so far.
So one did 500, so that's 70. So all the other ones did 10.
I mean, I feel bad even talking about it. I don't want them to fire Billy Napier. I'm happy with the direction it's going.
Can you go in and send negative money to get it back down?
No, I don't think so. That would be taking money.
I know.